Okay, when you have a thriller book and there's at some point you have to suspend your disbelief. It just happens. Whether it's a haunted house trope or whatever it is, there's a point in every single thriller where you have to suspend your disbelief. But I've read this book and I'm like, what? Why? Why are you doing this? And I'm going to give you examples, like exactly what I mean by it without spoiling the book, which is something that I thought about quite a lot, especially for not liking this book. But I feel like Mary Kubika has this reputation that a lot of people, share her books and their favorite thrillers and stuff. So I had such high expectations for this book. And when I started reading it, it was like crack. I just needed to turn the pages and I'm like, okay, what's happening? And then I realized who these people were. And I'm like, yeah, that's exactly what happened. Not even my bookmark wants to stay inside the book. And I'm kind of jealous of people that say this is a good book, because I wish I could suspend my disbelief in a way where, the book turns into something good, And the twist at the end, I feel like at 70%, I was able to predict it, which is a pretty long time. 70% of the book, it took me to kind of say, oh, so that person is the one. But there's so much I have to say about this book. And I hope that I don't offend anybody. I recently watched a video of a very popular YouTuber that gave 1 star to one of my favorite authors. And even though I didn't give a 5-star review to that particular book, it was 4.5. I thought, are we just okay, we can't be friends, and of course it's a joke. I understand that we're not going to have the same taste on every single book, but almost makes me feel a little overprotective of my favorite author. So I hope that I'm not offending you by telling you my experience with Just the Nicest Couple by Mary Kubika. I will continue to read her books. I feel like, and I don't know, maybe let me check here on the front. I don't know. Oh no, she 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. So 7 books already published. I was thinking maybe this was one of her first books, but no, it may be just that it's a writing style that I don't enjoy. I don't think it's bad writing. I just feel like it may be something that I don't really like. But this is a story of a woman that is a teacher, and she has a fight with her husband one night. He goes out to relax and kind of cool down and try to escalate this fight into something completely worse. And it's something that he usually did. He was a doctor, and so sometimes he would get called into the hospital and not come back for the night. He would spend the night out of the house and then come back the next day. So they have this fight. This guy disappears, and she is not reporting it to the police. But I'll come back to that. So then she goes to the school, and she talks to her best friend, who's another teacher. And, they're kind of, the couples are friends. They go out to dinner and stuff. So she's like, oh, yeah, he didn't come back and blah, blah, blah. But this is the only person that she tells that to. And then the other woman, the friend, is starting to act really interesting until we find out why she's acting that way. And I think it's part of the premise that, yeah, we do know that the friend saw her husband the day that he disappeared. So that's all I'm going to say about the premise of this book. My problem with the book was this. Everything that the characters did seems something that nobody would do. Or if somebody did it, you'd be wondering why. You know what I'm saying? It's like, okay, so I go to this one place. Let's say I go to the park. I encounter this person tries to abuse me, so I defend myself and leave the situation. What do? Do you go home and hide it, or do you call the police and say, hey, I was attacked by this unknown person or known person? But you do want to have a paper trail. You do want to report it because you didn't do anything wrong. So why? Why are you hiding it? Now, it is a little bit more suspicious if something like that happens to you and you don't report it. So then police will start to question and be like, wonder what happened. I mean, maybe it didn't happen the way that now she's saying it happened. Another thing is the wife. Like, if my husband disappears for one night, I understand the shame of saying, oh, well, I had a fight with my husband. Kind of, but not really. I understand you're not going to put it in the newspaper. You're not going to tell your next door neighbor about your husband leaving in the middle of the night and having a fight with you about your mother. That's what they were fighting about. But she decides to hide it for days and days until they eventually call from his office and they say, hey, your bride surgeon husband, he hasn't been coming to work for the last few days. Now, how did they miss this doctor for so many days when he was scheduled to be at work and then took them days to call them? I don't get that. I don't get it, and I think it's silly, and I just can't seem to find an explanation for that. Number 2, the wife is still not calling the police. And eventually, by the time she's thinking, well, maybe I should call the police, then she's kind of ashamed because she doesn't want to recognize that she's struggling in her marriage because of this situation with her mom. Which, there's no cheating. There's no, at this point, you're wondering, why? Why wouldn't you go and try to find your husband? So is it your pride bigger than your want to try to find your husband who might be kidnapped, killed? You name it. He could be anywhere, but he's not using his credit card. He's not using his bank account. He left everything behind and he hasn't been home. So I'm sorry, but this is just ridiculous. And that is just a couple of examples. I can't go through the rest of the examples, but the mom, something that happens in the house with the mom, where somebody goes into the house and who she says she saw, the condition that the mom has, like she has quite a few, and she is sick, really. But there's a condition in particular that they're kind of implying that it had something to do with that particular situation. The husband, the best friend's husband, who was also friends with this guy that just vanished, what he did, it's just silly. Nobody can do what he did and get away with it. That's all I'm going to say. Nobody. There's nobody out there who can do what he did and get away with it. So, even though I think that it was all part of this shock factor and kind of drag this, he's still missing, now I can't say anything to anybody because it will make me look like this, or now I can't say that I saw this man the day he disappeared because it's going to make me look this way, and now I cannot tell the police about this rape attempt I had somewhere else because that's where I saw him. And it's like, this is so much like ridiculousness in my opinion. And I understand that sometimes this kind of wacky suspend your disbelief from the first page till the last is something that sells. I don't want to offend anybody, but I feel like that's the case for a lot of Frida McFadden's book. It's like, they have all this unbelievable things that happen to characters or unbelievable decisions that the characters make that make it interesting for some people to follow the story. But this was one of those books where I was like, why am I reading this? Like, I'm mad at these people. I'm just angry at them. Why is this what they're doing? And I read till the end. Like I said, maybe at 70%, I was able to predict who I thought was responsible for his disappearance, and I was right, but it didn't add anything to the story. I didn't think it was such a crazy reveal or twist at the end. And again, I understand that this is a book that It's loved by a lot of people, but I feel like I just had to share my frustration with the choices made by these characters that ultimately were written by the author. I will continue to read some of her books. I do have a couple, I believe. I think the other one that I have is Local Woman Missing, and maybe, you know, it has really a lot of good reviews on that. So hopefully this was just something that didn't click with my reading taste, but I'll find more. And again, this is not bashing the author. It's just like, okay, why I can't suspend my disbelief for the entire book. So let me know, have you read it? Did you like it? I have to say that I loved it for the first 30% of the book because I was curious to know what was happening. So I was overlooking a lot of the stuff that was happening. But once I started to put things together, I was like, no, there's no way. I can't do this. So let me know in the comments down below if you read this book, if you love it. Again, I don't want to hurt anybody's feelings. This may be one of your favorite books, and I'm happy for you. I wish this would have done the same for me. Maybe I'm just being too picky about the whole thing, but there's so many other stories out there that put a little bit more effort into what the characters are doing, or the characters are at least are a little bit more believable.